Yuji Itadori. He truly needs no introduction. But for those who stumbled on this without knowing who Itadori is the protagonist of Jujutsu Kaisen, a Shonen Jump manga created by Gege Akutami. Itadori for me is one of my favorite characters ever, besides Sung Jin-woo. In a world full of curses, Yuji is like a ray of sunshine. His empathy and determination are traits I wish I had myself. This video is a little different from my others, but I really wanted to talk about Yuji, the good, the bad, the unbearable, and why he might be one of the most human characters in all of modern shonen. So grab some snacks, grab a drink, and let's talk about Yuji Itadori. And also, manga spoilers, be warned. Yuji at the start of the series is just a normal 15-year-old boy that likes to keep to himself. And by normal, I mean he can throw a shot put like a baseball around 23 meters and run 50 meters in 3 seconds. But over the course of the manga and the anime, Yuji faces a lot of reality-altering events that would change anyone. Yuji unfortunately did not grow up with any of his parents, but instead his grandpa Jin Itadori. A lot of people would use that as an excuse to be mad at the world or shut out. But Yuji was grateful for his grandpa and the lessons his grandpa would teach him. Even with physical gifts, he didn't exploit them for gain in his personal life. Yuji gives off this impression like he's silly and not really emotional, but Yuji is incredibly deep and super empathetic. He doesn't just sympathize, he truly digs deep to truly understand what someone is going through. Unfortunately, Jin dies telling Yuji to help others and that he is a strong boy. He also says to not end up like him and to die surrounded by people that you love. This becomes the fundamental foundation of Yuji as a sorcerer. Yuji was thrown into the Jujutsu world when he consumed Sukuna's finger, in a desperate moment to save the people around him. And by the smallest of chances, he became a vessel for Sukuna, the most deadliest curse. And since he became the vessel of Sukuna, the Jujutsu world was scared of him too, and planned to have him executed. This is when Gojo stepped in and started to teach Yuji about the world he was in now and how he can take control of his life. The underlying thing that Yuji deals with most in Jujutsu Kaisen is how he handles death, and when it comes for the ones he holds dear. And this brings us to Junpei, a quiet bullied kid with a deep love for movies. Junpei was super bullied at school, emotionally neglected at home. He's just a scared, naive boy that can be easily manipulated. One day, Junpei watched his bullies meet their end during a movie when he watched Mahito idol transfigure them. And this is the start of Mahito's manipulation on Junpei. Junpei begins to question his morality, wondering if bad people even deserve to live at all. Yuji is investigating the cursed incident and crosses paths with Junpei. Unlike anyone else in Junpei's life, Yuji treats him like a real friend. They connect quickly, bonding over movies and shared values. Yuji sees Junpei for what he is and doesn't shun him. Instead, he tries to be more like a big brother and be there for Junpei. We see Junpei open up around Yuji, and for the first time we see a glimmer of hopeful. But later it's found that Mahito, sensing Junpei's emotional instability, lies to him. He convinces Junpei that his mother was killed by the curse placed on his school bullies, when in fact it was most likely just Mahito. Driven by grief and rage, Junpei gains the ability to use a curse technique and attacks his school. Yes, Mahito transfigured his brain, allowing him to use the curse technique, but he always had the brain to be a sorcerer. Yuji arrives and tries to stop him, but not with violence but with empathy. Yuji wants to help Junpei. He pleads with Junpei to stop and to not become a murderer. He takes attacks from Junpei. And when Yuji seems to finally reach him, Mahito arrives at the scene and transfigures Junpei right in front of Yuji's face. Yuji is now enraged. He begs Sukuna to help, but Sukuna laughs in his face, and Mahito laughs as well. And this is when Yuji realizes the nature of curses. Just as much as he likes to save people, curses like to end them. And it's crazy to think that Junpei's loss can get overshadowed in the grief and loss that Yuji Itadori faces in the future. This moment with Junpei really marks Yuji's first true loss, besides his grandpa. His first real taste of what it means to fail someone despite trying with everything he had. What makes it so gut-wrenching is that Yuji wasn't trying to save a random person, he was trying to save someone he genuinely connected with, someone who could have been his friend. And after Junpei's death, we see a shift in Yuji. The once carefree kid who joked around all the time starts to understand the weight of what it means to be a Jujutsu sorcerer. He begins to grasp that not everyone can be saved, no matter how much you want to save them. But even after all that, Yuji doesn't become cynical or shut down emotionally. That's what's so special about him. Where many other shonen protagonists might use trauma as fuel to get stronger or seek revenge, Yuji processes grief and carries it with him. He doesn't forget Junpei, he doesn't use it as an excuse to stop caring either. Instead, he carries that pain, and it makes him more determined to protect others, even knowing he might fail again. This brings us to the issue of what if a Jujutsu sorcerer has to take a life. Most shonen protagonists don't really deal with the moral weight of taking a life, even villain lives, but for Yuji, it's different. When he first kills a human who's been transfigured by Mahito, he's devastated. Even though these people are no longer human and can't be saved, he still feels the weight of ending that was once a human life. Nanami has to help him understand that this is a mercy, that these people cannot be saved, and that ending their suffering is sometimes the only kindness left to give. This level of moral complexity is rare in shonen manga. Most protagonists either never kill or kill without much thought about it. But Yuji struggles with it deeply, which makes him feel so real. And then we get to the Shibuya Incident arc, which might be the darkest moment in Yuji's entire life. One of the most gut-wrenching moments of this arc, and possibly the entire series, is Nanami's death right in front of Yuji. Nanami wasn't just any sorcerer to Yuji. He was a mentor, someone who understood Yuji's struggle with the moral weight of being a Jujutsu sorcerer. When Yuji first killed transfigured humans, it was Nanami who helped him process it. The act of taking a life is never anything but a sin, Nanami told him. But that doesn't mean we shouldn't do it. Those words helped Yuji find purpose even in the darkest aspects of being a sorcerer. Nanami represented everything Yuji aspired to be: strong, principled, and genuinely committed to helping others despite his jaded exterior. He was the adult who treated Yuji not just as a student but as a fellow human being carrying an impossible burden. And then Mahito kills him right before Yuji's eyes. Nanami was beaten and burned, but he uses his last moments to muster up one final message: "You've got it from here." Even in death, Nanami believes in Yuji. The weight of witnessing Nanami's death so soon after losing Junpei is crushing. It's not just losing someone he respected, it's losing one of the few adults who truly understood and guided him. And like Junpei, who Yuji just barely met, Nanami had been a constant presence, someone who showed Yuji what it meant to be a sorcerer with humanity intact. What makes this moment even more tragic is that Yuji blames himself. If he had been stronger, faster, better, maybe Nanami would still be alive. This guilt compounds with everything else Yuji carries. Another name on the list of people he couldn't save despite his best efforts. But the trauma doesn't end with Nanami. In what feels like a cruel twist of fate, Yuji then witnesses Nobara, one of his closest friends and teammates, being gravely injured by Mahito. And in that moment, half Nobara's face is basically destroyed by Mahito's idol transfiguration, and she collapses before Yuji's eyes. Nobara wasn't just any teammate to Yuji. She was one of the first people who truly accepted him after he became Sukuna's vessel. She never looked at him with fear or suspicion. She treated him normally, joked with him, fought alongside him. She was genuine, straightforward, and unafraid to be herself. Qualities Yuji deeply respected. And then, in an instant, she's gone. From Yuji's perspective in that moment, Nobara is dead. Another friend he couldn't save for Mahito. Another person he cared about, lost right before his eyes. The pain of losing both Nanami and Nobara in such quick succession is almost unbearable. These aren't distant acquaintances or strangers he failed to save. These are people who mattered to him, who fought alongside him, who understood him. In the span of what feels like moments, Yuji loses a mentor and one of his closest friends. With each loss, a piece of Yuji's optimism and innocence is chipped away. The bright-eyed boy who entered the Jujutsu world believing he could protect everyone is forced to confront a harsh reality, that no matter how strong he becomes, he cannot save everyone he cares about. And if losing Nanami and Nobara wasn't devastating enough, Sukuna takes control over Yuji's body in Shibuya, and the result is catastrophic. An entire section of the city is decimated, everybody in it most likely dead. And the worst part, Yuji is aware of all of it. He's trapped inside of his own body, forced to watch as his hands are used to slaughter innocent people. Any person would break under this kind of trauma, and Yuji nearly does. When he regains control, he is overwhelmed with guilt, so crushing that he begs to die. And this is where we reach Manga. So if you're an anime only, you can click off. But I suggest you stay. And when Yuta is sent to come kill Yuji, he doesn't try to defend himself or argue that it wasn't his fault. He accepts responsibility for what happened, even though he had no control. That's the kind of person Yuji is. He doesn't make any excuse or try to shift blame. He faces consequences head on, no matter how unfair they might be. But what's remarkable is that even after Shibuya, even after being responsible for so much death and destruction, Yuji keeps going. He doesn't give up. He doesn't surrender to despair. Though he comes close, instead he carries that weight and continues fighting, continues trying to help others, continues trying to fulfill his role as Sukuna's vessel, because that's who Yuji is, someone who keeps moving forward no matter how heavy the burden becomes. What's even more impressive is how Yuji grows through these tragedies. When we first meet him, he's just a physically gifted kid with a good heart, but through his experiences, he develops into something much more complex. He learns to channel his emotions, to control his cursed energy, and to become a true Jujutsu sorcerer. But more importantly, he learns what it means to truly live according to his grandfather's words. To help others, to forge connections, to find purpose in a world that seems increasingly cruel and chaotic. His relationship with Nobara and Megumi is a perfect example of this growth. At first, they're just classmates forced to work together, but over time, they develop a bond that transcends their duties as sorcerers. They become a family of some sorts, people who understand each other's pain and support each other through it. And when Nobara is gravely injured during the Shibuya Incident, Yuji's grief is palpable. But instead of letting it consume him, he uses it as motivation to keep fighting, to prevent others from suffering the same fate. And his dynamic with Megumi shows just how far Yuji has come in understanding the complexities of the world. When Megumi questions whether saving everyone is even possible, Yuji doesn't dismiss him with naive optimism. Instead, he acknowledges the harsh reality but chooses to keep trying anyway. He knows it's impossible to save everyone, but that doesn't mean it's not worth trying to save as many people as you can. One of the most powerful aspects of Yuji's character is his relationship with Sukuna. Unlike many protagonists who house some kind of evil entity, Yuji doesn't form a grudging partnership with Sukuna. He doesn't try to harness Sukuna's power for his own ends either. Instead, he sees Sukuna for exactly what he is, a malevolent curse who cares nothing for human life. And yet, Yuji still chooses to become a cog and be the one who holds Sukuna, knowing it will likely lead to his death, because the alternative, letting innocent people suffer, is unacceptable to him. To me, this is what makes Yuji such a compelling protagonist. His heroism isn't based on being the chosen one or having some special identity. It's based on making difficult choices that align with his values. And despite everything he goes through, despite the trauma, the loss, the overwhelming burden of being Sukuna's vessel, Yuji still finds moments of joy. He still laughs with his friends, still enjoys simple pleasures, still maintains his fundamental humanity. That's remarkably rare. In a genre where protagonists are often defined solely by their trauma or their power, in many ways Yuji reminds me of what it means to be truly strong. Not just physically strong, though he certainly is, but emotionally strong. Strong enough to face unbearable pain and keep going. Strong enough to witness the worst that the world has to offer and still believe in helping others. Strong enough to know he's walking toward his own execution and still find reasons to smile along the way. The lesson I like to take from Yuji isn't about becoming the strongest or defeating a big bad. It's about what it means to live a good life in an often cruel world. It's about finding purpose and helping others, forming genuine connections, and facing both life and death with dignity and compassion. Yuji teaches us that true strength isn't about never failing. It's about getting back up every time you do. It's about carrying your burdens without letting them crush your spirit. It's about maintaining your humanity even when the world seems determined to strip it away. And then we get to the Culling Games, yet another trial that tests Yuji's resolve and humanity. After everything Yuji has been through, the deaths of Junpei and Nanami, seeing Nobara fall, the massacre of Shibuya, the Culling Games force him to face a new kind of horror, a battle royale where sorcerers and civilians alike are forced to kill or be killed. A game designed by Kenjaku to harvest cursed energy and to further his plans. What's remarkable about Yuji during this arc is how he refuses to abandon his humanity despite the brutal nature of the games. While others embrace the violence or focus solely on survival, Yuji maintains his goal of saving as many innocent people as possible, even in a literal death game. He refuses to see others as disposable. And his partnership with Megumi during this arc shows just how far he's truly come, no longer the naive newcomer to Jujutsu society. Yuji is now capable of making tough, strategic decisions while still holding on to his core values. He understands the necessity of working within the rules of the game to save as many people as possible, even if it means making difficult compromises. The Culling Games also force Yuji to confront the reality of his existence as Sukuna's vessel more directly than ever before, as other players target him specifically because of Sukuna. Yuji faces the burden of being seen as a weapon or a threat rather than a person. Yet rather than resenting this burden, he accepts it as part of his responsibility. But the most devastating blow of the Culling Games comes when Sukuna transfers to Megumi's body. After everything Yuji has endured, after all the people he's lost, watching Sukuna take over Megumi is perhaps the cruelest twist of fate. Megumi isn't just any friend to Yuji, he's the first person Yuji met in the Jujutsu world, the person who stood by him from the beginning. While Yuji was willing to die after consuming Sukuna's finger, it was Megumi who inspired him to live and find a purpose as a Jujutsu sorcerer. Their relationship runs deeper than friendship. They saved each other countless times, pushed each other to grow stronger, and understood each other in ways no one else could. And now Yuji has to watch as this person who means so much to him is violated in the worst possible way, having his body and his will taken over by the same curse that Yuji has been fighting to contain. For so long, Yuji believed that by becoming Sukuna's vessel, he was protecting others from that fate. He endured the burden so no one else would have to. And now, despite all of his sacrifices, despite everything he suffered, his best friend is experiencing the same nightmare. Unlike Yuji, who Sukuna sees as a merely temporary vessel, Sukuna specifically targeted Megumi. He wanted Megumi's body, his technique, his potential. This isn't random bad luck, it's a deliberate violation of someone Yuji cares deeply about. The helplessness Yuji feels watching Sukuna use Megumi's body, seeing Megumi's face contorted with Sukuna's malice, is unlike any trauma he's experienced before. It's not just witnessing the death of someone he cares about, it's seeing them trapped in a living nightmare, the very being suppressed and used against their will. And yet, even this unimaginable grief becomes fuel for Yuji's resolve. Rather than breaking under this new burden, he becomes more determined than ever to free Megumi and defeat Sukuna once and for all. This isn't just about fulfilling his role as Sukuna's vessel anymore. It's about saving his friend from a fate he knows all too well. And then comes the ultimate confrontation, the battle between Gojo and Sukuna. For Yuji, this is not just another fight. This is Sukuna using Megumi's body, fighting against Gojo, two people he deeply respects and cares about, forced into a battle to the death. When Gojo falls to Sukuna, it's yet another devastating blow to Yuji, the man who saved him, who believed in his potential, who gave him a chance at life rather than immediate execution, defeated using Megumi's body. The weight of this loss, on top of everything else Yuji has endured, would crush most people, but not Yuji Itadori. Instead, this loss becomes a catalyst for Yuji's most profound growth. He realizes that to defeat Sukuna, he needs more than just physical strength and cursed techniques. He needs to understand the nature of cursed energy itself, and more importantly, its opposite. And this brings us to perhaps the most beautiful aspect of Yuji's character arc, his understanding of love. Not romantic love, but a deeper, more universal concept of love as connection, as the antithesis to cursed energy, which is born from negative emotions. When Yuji finally confronts Sukuna directly in their internal battle for control, he doesn't win through superior strength or some special technique. He wins by showing Sukuna something the King of Curses could never understand: the power of human connection, of caring for others more than yourself, of finding strength in vulnerability rather than isolation. Yuji teaches Sukuna about love not through words but through his actions throughout the entire series. His willingness to sacrifice himself for others, his refusal to abandon his humanity no matter how much suffering it causes him, his ability to form genuine bonds even though they might end in heartbreak. This victory over Sukuna represents the culmination of Yuji's story. He doesn't defeat the King of Curses by becoming more like him, more cruel, more focused on power. He defeats him by remaining steadfastly human, by embodying the values his grandfather instilled in him, helping others and leaving the world better than he found it. Being surrounded by people you love is worth more than being the strongest of individuals. And despite everything, Yuji keeps choosing hope. He keeps choosing to help others. He keeps choosing to live according to his values no matter how difficult that becomes. And that's why Yuji Itadori isn't just some great protagonist. He's a character we can truly learn from. Someone who reminds us of what it means to be human in the face of inhuman challenges. Someone who shows us that even in our darkest moments, we can still choose to be a light for others. And in a world that sometimes feels as cursed as the one Yuji lives in, that's a lesson worth remembering. So what do you think about Yuji Itadori? Drop a comment below with your favorite Yuji moment or what you think makes him such a compelling character. And I hope this video earned your subscription. Obviously I left a lot out, but this is not a full character analysis. I just wanted to talk about my boy Yuji and why he is one of my favorite characters of all time.